enjoy it. All right. Hey out there on our various cameras, Facebook Live, our awesome audience of 4 people. This is The Mindful Activist, a podcast. This is episode 6. My name is Matt Reddy. I'm the host. My guest today is Jack Cooley III.
It's true.
I am a activist, the founder of the Global Consensus Project, the developer of the Hive1.net software, also an elected politician here in Jefferson County. I am a elected hospital commissioner. We're going to jump into it, and we're going to go an hour, and then there might be, if we want to talk,
Sure.
The official show will be an hour.
Gotcha.
And we can keep going for a little bit after if we want. So, as I said, joined today by Jack Cooley III, good friend of mine for how many years now?
I guess it's been about 8 years.
8, really?
Yeah.
That long? 8 years, jeez, wow. We worked together at the local hospital in various ways, in different departments.
Yep.
But how would you like to introduce yourself to this vast audience?
Oh man. Okay. Well, I'm Jack. I'm a ne'er-do-well rapscallion and general layabout. I perform. I drift. I'm going back and forth between calling myself willfully unemployed and semi-retired. Haven't decided which one I like better, but.
Okay, so let's see. Ne'er-do-well. I don't even know what's a ne'er-do-well. A rapscallion. There's several things in there that.
I do things that generally. What's a good way to put it? I'm not a rule follower or a person who does what's expected.
Not a rule follower or someone that does what's expected. Okay.
Does that sound accurate to you?
Yes, I would definitely say that is my experience. So you're saying you like authority being held over you?
Yeah, I'm a real Trump guy. No, I'm not a fan of any sort of authoritarianism. I think that for some people that makes a lot of sense. Some people that really need to be directed on what they should be doing and how they should think, and that's just not really my jam.
Okay. All right. Well, before I get into the standard line of questioning that
Sure.
we begin these,
Yeah.
I remembered one technical thing I need to do. So I'm going to do that, which I need to reach back here and hit record on that.
And what is this?
So this is actually the Zoom software. It's a live video conference software. So
Okay.
Technically 50 people could join right now.
Yeah, we could just have drop-ins right behind.
Yes,
Okay.
we could.
I like that.
But the only way they would do that is if they actually had the link to the Zoom. And so I'm going to post that also right now on Facebook in case any crazy person wants to do that. All these little technical details. And
If you had some sort of like teenage producer that could be doing that work for you.
indeed. If I had
Like an intern.
an intern or apprentice of some sort, that would be very helpful. Maybe something like that'll happen. Hint, hint. Okay, so let's go we'll do the standard question.
Okay.
Do you consider yourself an activist?
No. Short answer, no. I'm not sure that I could give a long answer even. I don't consider myself an activist.
And so when you say no, what is it that you're thinking of? How is an activist different from you?
I do not try to affect change on large or small scales. I do not actively try to change people's actions or opinions.
Okay. So do you feel like the way the world works, the way power works in the world, the way, and when I think of power, I think of the way governments work in our country and around the world. Do you think they're functioning in a good way?
No, not really. But, I don't think they ever have.
Do you think they could function in a healthier way than they function?
That's a good question. I suppose theoretically, sure. Practically, maybe not so much, just because 7 billion people, 7 billion different ideas of the way things should be, and there's no one right answer.
Are there better answers? Are some answers better than others?
At the risk of invalidating someone else's opinion, I would say that sure, for any one person, there's an answer that is right.
But you don't personally feel drawn to try to affect how power works in the world on the big scale.
No, not particularly.
Are you affected? Do you have significant sort of power dynamics that work on the small scale in your individual life in any frame, whether it's professional or work or community or anything like that?
I don't think I fully understand what you're asking.
Like, well, why don't we go to my second line of questioning, and it sort of goes to
Sure.
this, which is how are you in power struggles? Like, do you often find yourself in any sort of power struggle where anyone is trying, particularly, to exercise power over you?
I don't often find myself in power struggle type situations. I react differently to different situations, as does everybody else. Everybody likes to think that they'll behave a certain way in the future when something happens. But between the three options of fight, flight, or freeze, you never know how you will react until you are actually in a moment. There have been situations where I've been very quiet and allowed things to happen that I could have stepped in and stopped. There have been situations that became unnecessarily violent. Things happen.
Okay. Interesting. So it sounds like you've got a few different stories.
And we probably don't want to share too many of them.
You've had a colorful life.
I have. Had a colorful life. It's true.
Well, what if someone was raising their voice to you? And is it?
I'm amused because I knowing you the way I do, you like these hypothetical situations.
I like real situations too. I like real stories.
Sure,
but,
sure. It's all dependent on the situation. Sometimes it's really easy to let somebody just blow off steam. It's like, okay, well, you feel like you need to be loud and assertive right now, and I'm going to let that happen. If there's not an immediate danger posed, then, let somebody vent. That's fine.
Does it trigger emotions if someone's getting loud like that, particularly towards you in your presence? I mean, personally, I'm usually emotionally triggered. I don't
Sure.
know if someone complained about me using that word, but
Well, it's a mimetic phrase these days.
Yeah.
Triggered. Well, yeah. I mean, everything triggers emotions, whether it's somebody being loud or somebody whispering in your ear. It changes the chemicals in your brain, and stuff happens.
So is it an effective strategy if we want Jack Cooley to do something for us to raise our voice and say...
No, an effective strategy is to encourage me not to do it.
Don't
Tell me I'm not allowed.
Reverse
and then I'm like,
psychology.
well, fuck you. I'm kind of like perpetually 17 years old in that sense. If you tell me I'm not allowed to do something, I'm very likely to do it.
And
Wind's blowing.
Yeah, wind is blowing everywhere. So that must frustrate people that like to exercise power
Yeah,
around
I'm kind of
you.
a dick like that.
Yeah. I see.
That might be why people stop asking me to do things at work, actually.
Did that happen?
Oh, over time, sure, but I think I'm also quick to share my opinions and point out when people have been repeatedly wrong about something and encouraging us to stop listening to them.
All right. All right. Well, I've exhausted the 2 questions that I asked people.
We're all out of questions. It's been a great show. Thank you all for coming. How many do we have now?
And there was a comment by Rosanna. Why not? If he is not drawn to create change, what is he drawn to? What the heck do you care about?
Oh, what am I drawn to?
Oh, and how do you feel afterward when you did not step in and could have? Oh, so she actually listened to your your other anecdotes.
How I felt afterward. I don't know. I mean, you go through a myriad of emotions. I don't really dwell in.
You need to just get a little closer.
things too
Facebook
much.
can't see your whole body.
Well, it's more comfortable over here. There's something to lean on.
Yes.
It's weird if I lean on you.
Oh, we could adjust all the cameras.
For not stepping into situations, I don't know. It's I don't really feel any regret over not doing anything. Sometimes things happen.
Well, what kind of? I mean, I would think it depends on the kind of situation. If it's, if you're like near a bar or something and 2 guys, start to go at it.
Sure, I've sat back and enjoyed watching 2 idiots beat each other up. That's
I feel no
can't
regret.
feel bad about that.
allowing-
they jackasses were going to do it anyway.
Yeah, it's different if somebody weaker or vulnerable is getting hurt. You wouldn't stand by and allow that unless you were in a really.
Oh, I think like an elementary school sort of thing. I probably did. More like self-preservation of a very small human. Yeah, sure. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
What was your other question?
The other question was getting at your apathy for being drawn into trying to fix the world in any way. I don't know if a lot of people. I have a lot of friends who are kind of apathetic about the world, and so I think some of the activist community might be curious what these apathetic people are doing on an activist podcast.
It's true. I'm not an activist, so why am I sitting on this couch? Sort of question. Sure. Which I don't really know how to answer. Some people are Philistines and don't understand why art is created, and they have absolutely no interest in it. But we don't berate them for not writing or painting or sculpting.
Sure. So you don't see it as part of your life's purpose to, on any large scale, affect the world, or is that true? I think there are things I know you're involved with that if you completed them and published them, say, they would affect the world in a larger way. But it's do you want to talk about anything like that you?
Well, I don't go into anything with that sort of stated purpose in mind.
No.
Like, I don't do anything because I think it's going to change the world for better. I do something because it's a thing I want to do.
Do you care if it impacts people at all?
Not particularly. I don't want to be the cause of a negative impact on a person, but yeah, I don't think I do anything that would well, I don't know, maybe. Some people have been offended by things that I've said and done.
Some on rare occasions, people have been offended by what you've said.
Sure. It's been known to happen.
I've heard stories of people coming up to you on the ferry that were just like overhearing conversations being.
Yeah, that did happen.
Just coming up to you and saying, "You're a horrible person."
Yeah,
but,
there was a whole group of us, and I'll share this with the 4 of you. We had gone out to dinner. I'm not even sure how many of us there were. There was 5 or 6 of us that had gone out to dinner and had a few drinks and Seattle. We were riding the ferry back home, and we were just being who we are, which tends to be a little loud, and we make a lot of jokes. I didn't recall any of them being in any way offensive. We were just like making fun of each other and having a good time with it. There's almost nobody else on the ferry, but this one woman just kind of came out of nowhere, and she addressed the group of us and specifically pointed at me and said, "You're all terrible people, you're an asshole, and you should be ashamed of yourself," and stormed off.
Wow.
Which left us kind of sitting there going, well, what did we say?
Do you think that was maybe a supernatural being that was incarnate in a person, and
I sincerely doubt that.
you don't think that was a message from, the universe saying, you're really a jerk, maybe you should be different?
If that sort of soft, gentle evening that we were having of making fun of each other in a space where we were all comfortably making fun of each other and had nothing to do with this other person. Granted, it was in a public place. I understand that. There weren't any kids around, and I don't think we were saying anything terribly lewd or offensive. So
Yeah.
it's no, I don't think that was any sort of divine intervention to try to get me to change who I am.
Do you ever feel inspired to walk up to a group of people that you don't know at all and just like pass massive judgment on them and storm away?
No, I can't say I've ever felt that desire to pass judgment on people. I internalize my judgments of others like so many other people do.
And then you blog about them or something?
No. I make mental notes on how I do and do not wish to present myself to the world.
I see.
Like you ever driven by like some hate group having a protest outside of something and be like, wow, those guys are dicks. I should not be like that.
That's actually
sort of things like that.
I started thinking sort of that way in college.
Yeah.
It was when I was starting in the dorms. I was seeing the way particularly other guys were,
Sure.
the way they were behaving. I was like, okay, I do not want to be that.
Yeah.
And it was like, I remember saying to my friend, it was like a revelation to me, this good friend of mine. I just walked up to him one day and says, I don't want to be like the people I hate.
Yeah.
It's like, that's goal number one.
No, it's great.
Don't be like the people that you
When
hate.
you reach a point in your life where you can readily recognize a bad example of a human, you can be like, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah, actually the first time I had that revelation, we had a video recorder, a VHS, and we recorded a bunch of, in high school, us hanging out, and I was watching it, and I was seeing myself and the way I was behaving, and I was like, oh my gosh, no,
Yeah.
I don't like that person
Yeah.
who I see, and I'm hearing, it's like, oh my gosh, you are so obnoxious,
Yep.
That was a rough moment for me. I think I was probably like a freshman hanging out with some older people.
Sure. Yeah. I remember seeing photographs of myself or old VHS recordings of myself as a child.
Yeah.
And going, God, look at that. What a fucking brat.
Yeah.
Annoying little kid. I was also the youngest of the youngest, so like we would go to family gatherings and there's 35 cousins rolling around and they're all several years older than me. So in that kind of pathetic youngest kids cry for attention sort of thing.
Yeah. So how do you, I'm going to get kind of philosophical here.
Okay.
How do you approach life? Like, do you see it as like, I can give examples, I can just leave the question like that. What is your attitude towards it? Do you feel like you need to accomplish something? Do you feel like it's a game? Do you feel like it's absurd and nothing and you can just do whatever you want? Or
I feel like life should be a one long learning experience. You should be constantly learning new things, whether it's just things about the way things work, the way people behave, things about yourself. I think that, learn often and do things that you're afraid of doing.
so that sounds like one lesson right there, one teaching from the Book of Jack.
The Book of Jack.
Learn
Oh,
often.
that sounds terrible. That's a book I wouldn't buy.
Learn often. I would skim through it in the aisle at the bookstore.
Barnes and Noble. You'd sit down for a minute and at least read the table of contents and then put it back on the shelf.
No, I would read your book. I am publishing a book, so any friend of mine that writes a book,
Surely.
I'm going to tell them I'm going to read their book.
I'm at least going to tell them
Yes.
that I'm going to read their book.
Absolutely.
I like that.
So what other, what do you have any like major like lessons about life that are just like, that are really like central to you and say this, let's just say in 1,000 years, this video is the only thing that is left. It's the only thing that survives into the millennia ahead.
Exciting.
And this is what they're going to hear, this interesting character, Jack, share this is what he learned in life up until this point.
See, this is one of the reasons I wanted to know what you wanted to talk about beforehand. Because this is a question that I feel deserves a well-crafted and thought-out answer. But you're just going to put me on the spot.
Well, actually, but you can. We can have a moment of silence while you on camera search for your well thought out answer, or I can keep talking. I can keep like prefacing it and building it up while you compose your answer if you want. You can also come back, to a later episode and say, "I'm ready for that question now, and I want to answer it." So you could defer.
Yeah, let's defer that to a later date. I'll send you an email from.
Okay, from where you're going.
From far, far away.
Yes. Okay. All right. So since we completely cut off that awesome question, that was a great question. Now I'm demonstrating my amazing interview skills.
So you want to curate questions for each person that you're going to interview beforehand, so you can be like, well, let's ask this now.
That's the way other people do things.
Your formula for success, fuck it, I don't need it. Good. Figure this out.
No, this is a mindful conversation. So it's like, all right. So what that was I went for the gold, the big question, and you sort of pretty gently deferred it. So
mostly because I know for a fact that I can say things that are garish, and come to regret them later, or try to be pithy, but it comes out sounding wrong. And I would rather, if you're going to ask me a high-level gold star question like that, I'd like to have a good response to it, something that's well thought out.
Well, I totally appreciate that. Some people, like my father, who I think I convinced to let me interview him, although I didn't do it.
Yeah.
His big hesitation was he doesn't want his words recorded. He doesn't want what he says recorded. It's just like this really strong anxiety about it being about him saying something that he regrets and having it replayed and recorded.
Yeah, and having it captured forever.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the reasons I prefer email to phone conversations, is because I like to be able to sit down and think about a response and put that up there. Or at least, I like scripted performances too for that purpose. Like I can deliver a line as it needs to be delivered each time instead of having to come up with something immediately.
Okay, so I'm gonna get philosophical with you. Again, is something happening over here?
No, I'm just noticing. He's got porn on the laptop. It's distracting, is what it is.
All right.
Elected official. That's fun for me.
Yes,
I always forget that my friend Matt is an elected official.
You trigger the elected official, little part of my, awareness. That puts a little. That's not really what's going on my laptop. All right. I'm gonna go more philosophical.
All right.
Okay.
No, go for it. I like it.
Okay. So I guess going back to how seriously do you take life? How seriously do you take this world, the events on Earth?
Not terribly. Life is ephemeral. It's fleeting. It's over in no time, and there aren't a lot of things I take seriously. I try to take my relationships with people seriously. I try to be a good father, son, brother, friend, husband. That's probably the one thing I really take seriously is my relationships with people. But other than that, everything is so cosmically meaningless that it's hard to take it seriously sometimes.
Do you ever doubt the reality of the world?
Sure. It's entirely possible that once you start thinking on large scales, like the reality of our existence, it's really easy to say it's highly possible that none of this is real. That we live in a false vacuum or a simulation of some sort. It's fun to explore that, and it's a nice way to kind of write off why you do things. I can't say that I believe that it's not real. Looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's as real as it needs to be for all of us.
So, okay, so you've thought about the simulation theory.
Sure.
That this could be not a material world that we're living in, but a simulated, like a virtual reality.
Sure.
Type thing.
Yeah.
But you don't see, even if you knew right now it would not change a lot in terms of like how you relate to the world and change the meaning of it for you, or the things that are meaningful to you. It wouldn't change those things terribly.
I don't think it would. Having a harsh reality change happen to you, it's hard to say for sure how one would react to that. But I don't know. It might make me very angry.
Oh, angry at who? What?
Anger at not being real, at feeling for decades that you are your own person and not.
See, my main if I found out it was definitely some sort of simulation, mm-hmm. I'd all the time I'd be talking to myself, to whoever's running the simulation.
Oh, I do that anyway.
Yeah. Maybe we should do that right now. We should have a conversation with the people potentially running the simulation, and
sure.
What do we want to say to them? I want to say, if you guys want to give us any like superpowers, I mean,
telekinesis would be nice.
Whoa, you mean is that the moving things with your mind?
Yeah.
That's not the telepathy.
No, I don't want to know other people's thoughts. That sounds like a drag.
Yeah, no, I've read some sci-fi
people
books.
think dark shit too, man. I don't want to get in on that.
I would be into telepathy, but you have to be able to turn it off.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a nightmare.
And it's so invasive. I feel like I wouldn't want anybody reading my thoughts. That's just rude.
Yeah, no, incredibly invasive. But it also would be such a learning experience.
Sure.
It would be. Sure. I read a sci-fi book or a fantasy book where a little girl was born with the ability to read people's minds, and there's just like a curse. Mm-hmm. I mean, especially reading, anyways.
Yeah. No, it does not sound pleasant.
So is there, let me finish that thought. Is there anything you want to say to the people, if there's anyone running the simulation,
Reboot.
I don't know why I'm looking up. Reboot and start over? What point do you want it to start over? Reboot.
Jesus. There was a mutation that happened at some point on a DNA level that helped primates evolve into human being or into Homo sapiens. In fact, Homo erectus, Homo pygmalius, all of that. Let's kind of go back to right before that and just stop that from happening.
Let us be
animals instead of what we I don't know. For better or worse, we are what we are.
I don't know what, I mean, you don't think maybe, it sounds like you have kind of a negative attitude towards humanity.
Yeah, people are bastard-filled bastards.
Why do you say that?
I don't know. I've known a lot of them. No, people are fun. I don't know. There's all kinds of different people in the world, and some of them are bastards, and nobody thinks they're the bad guy, even though, you know, a lot of other people might think that person is a bad guy. I mean, every grand villain that the planet has had did what he did because he thought it was the right thing to do. So every activist out there in the world is doing what they think is the right thing to do, and it's two sides of a really fucking weird coin.
Yeah, I mean, it totally. I mean, you're messing with fire. You try to change anything.
Yeah.
I mean, whether or not you do it on a big scale or a small scale. If you have a friend.
No, I don't have one of those.
Well, let's suppose you had a friend.
Imagine if you will.
And suppose you had a friend that actually cared about your opinion of things.
Sure.
And you could influence them.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I'm often, I have a friend like really talking to me about like a decision or whatever, and you have power there.
Mm-hmm.
If they're, asking you, and you have power to push them one way or influence them to go one way or the other on a decision. And sometimes, you actually care about what they do because it affects you. You actually have a preference, at least you think you do, and you can use that to push a decision one way or the other. But you never know what the consequences are. It's like if you have a friend in a relationship or something, thinking about breaking up or whatever, and you influence it one way or the other, you don't know if you're making things better or worse. Really, you won't know for like 5 years, and even then, you may not know. You never know the consequences of your actions.
It's true.
Yeah.
It all works out in the end. It's okay.
Does it? Does it all work out in the end?
Sure.
I think that's your advice.
Sometimes it works out in a really shitty way, but it worked out.
The plan came together.
That's right.
As the A-Team would say.
What else you got?
What else you got?
What else do I have?
What topics do you want to?
I
mean, this is called the Mindful Activist. We can actually talk about anything that we want to. You still have me. You have me sort of like churning and curious about your attitude towards humanity and your attitude towards the bastards.
It comes and goes. It's really easy to swing from seeing all the awful that is in the world to seeing all of the good that is in the world, and it's easy enough to say that people are good, and then there's child soldiers in Africa there's a lot of good and a lot of bad, and if you live in a nice isolated good part of the world, it's really easy to see that. It's really easy to have the worldview that people are good, and if you live in an isolated shithole part of the world, it's really easy to not trust anyone and see all of the bad in people. So your worldview is greatly influenced by your immediate environment.
So, in saying that, I mean, you're obviously one of the people that doesn't stick your head in the sand and ignore how bad it is in some places on Earth. You are aware of child soldiers, and there's much worse examples could give than that.
There's all kinds of bad.
Yeah.
Hence telepathy being no. Hard pass.
So, so we talked about like seeing someone getting hurt, some violence happening in front of us would be, and someone was weak or vulnerable having in front of us. That is different than seeing just two thugs beating up each other. I'm sort of curious how, I mean, you sort of gave examples of bad things happening in parts of the world.
Sure.
It's far away, but does it like not make you, does it not cause any sort of like, if I could change that, I would. It does make me angry. Is there any sort of that, or is it?
So you want to circle back to almost what do you choose to be apathetic about?
I suppose. I suppose I'm doing.
I think that what there's almost a slippery slope of caring, and that sounds awful. I know that, but if you're going to pick and choose what you care about, then you have to pick and choose very, very carefully. Otherwise, you just need to start caring about everybody's problems. And then you don't have time for anything else in your day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something, I don't know if other people do, but I think that's something I've sort of like, I started struggling with in college, was like, what do I care about? You know, and whose pain do I allow to affect me? And so who do I feel empathy with? Because I guess it was in college when I just first started to get a sense of how much suffering there was in the world. And I think and I guess the reason I'm asking the question is I still struggle with, what is the healthiest attitude towards these things? I mean, I kind of, I've just simplified it down to there's my life, my happiness, and then there's global transformation to a better world. Those are the two things I care about.
Sure.
You know, it's like, and so it's like everything in between that, it's like people like had car accidents today and they, it's like
that universe-wide area of gray between
Yeah, well, it's like you said, I can't like be empathetic with everyone's, individual suffering about their lives, but I basically just look at it, other than doing what I need to do to take care of my little microcosm of my life, which I do need to care for. It's like the only other thing I care about is how do we change the world into a place where we don't have those dark spots in, these countries. I mean, it's like literally that's, my activism, it's like I'm looking at those dark spots, it's like, because that's my goal. We do have to like clean up the crap in the countries that have wealth and power and infrastructure and can walk outside without getting beat up or worse. But, the only reason I'm just like really enthusiastic about trying to fix that is because I want us to get everywhere. It's like the bastards in the world that you mentioned. They just really, it's in college. They just irritate me that they use their power to dominate people in the world, and they love power, love power struggles, love politics. And they keep good people like you, apathetic. I think they actually, they want you to be apathetic.
I'm not sure that apathy is even really the right word for it. So if you talk about the dark spots, so let's say you have the dark spots and you have the bright spots. And there is the thought that, the longer you stare into the abyss begins to stare back, right?
What does that mean?
And you end up being influenced by the things that you're trying to change. You can't battle monsters without yourself becoming a monster. I think that it's, for me personally, it's best to make my brightness brighter and avoid the darkness. I would rather not contribute. I think that my contribution is not being a bastard to other people, and that the people around me can see that you can live your life without oppressing someone else or taking food out of somebody else's mouth, and maybe somebody will see that as a good example of a person and not a bad example of a person.
Totally get that. I'm still stuck on the you can't battle, the whole staring into the abyss staring back, and you can't battle a monster without becoming a monster. That's a pretty grim statement.
Sure,
there's monsters.
That is a grim
there's
statement.
monsters
That
all
is a
over
grim
the place.
statement. So I mean, when you go off to fight a murderer and you yourself become a murderer, how does that help the world? In what way? It doesn't stop. It just creates this never-ending cycle of violence and pain. Because, let's say, the sake of argument, you have the opportunity to go back in time and kill Hitler. Everybody's favorite kill Hitler story, right? You have the opportunity to go back in time and kill Hitler. So you go back in time and you kill a kid at art school. And his mom hates you, so she kills you, and that upsets your loved one, so they kill her. And it's the terrible cliche. Well, it's not even a terrible cliche. It's just in the world of an eye for an eye, everyone is blind.
Yeah. But I mean, you don't have to fight violence with violence.
Expand on that. Tell me how you're going to fight violence without that.
Well, like, during the civil rights, fighting,
The civil rights movement lasted well over a decade, and there were hundreds of riots. There was a lot of violence involved in the civil rights movement.
No, I'm not saying some people didn't. I'm saying, like, when they took the buses down to the South,
Sure.
to challenge segregation. I'm like looking for the wrong word. And they would, they were fighting violence with non-violence resistance. They were going into cafes and stuff where blacks were not allowed, and they would sit down and they would order food, and they would take whatever violence was put their way, which got pretty bad at times. That was an absolute action. They were going straight at the monster of prejudice, and they weren't using violence. They were using nonviolent resistance, and it's a powerful tactic. I mean, there's other options. You don't have to use the tactic that your opponent is using. You don't have to use the same attitude and you don't have to hate your opponent. I mean, that's something that the Dalai Lama says. You don't, I don't know how he does it, but he talks about loving your enemies is the route to disarming them.
Do you feel that you personally have enemies that you need to concentrate on not hating?
Yeah. When I look at the world and the forces that I'm pushing against, there's
That's very abstract, though. You want to talk about loving enemies? Do you have an individual enemy that you have to remind yourself to not hate?
I do have.
I've made you uncomfortable.
Well, let me put it this way. One, when I'm struggling with other people, I'm not the Dalai Lama. I don't practice loving my enemy. I'm not a saint like that, But I often, when I do try to, I try to look at them and try to be mindful of what's going on in them. It always helps me. The more I can soften and try to be sympathetic with where they're coming from, it often does help me come up with a better tactic, a better way to interact with them. But I do not. I'm too sensitive to. I get too irritated by what I perceive as very selfish thinking, or very short-sighted thinking, or lack of actual thought and reflection. And I just don't have the patience to be like, to be what might be nice, if I was, say you and I were like arguing something, say like you were some sort of political power that I was interacting with. I get worn down by bad ideas and bad attitudes. I can only sit with people like that for so long.
Sure.
I do try to be. I try not to be a jerk. I try to be mindful and calm as I express myself. And they may not be with me at all in these situations.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, people don't respond well to a calm individual. It's really weird. People who are naturally angry, I guess, don't respond well to that.
Yeah, and they're more used to other people just coming back with with anger or strong, elevated voices. Sure. And stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. What were we talking about that it got reflected onto me?
It doesn't matter. We can talk about something else. What do you want to talk about? I have less than 72 hours before I move to Portugal. That'll be fun.
Well, since you went there, why are you leaving the greatest country on earth?
Because I've already explored quite a bit of the United States and North America, and it's time to go someplace else and explore there.
What are you running away from?
My feelings, my childhood, nothing. I'm running toward, not away.
Okay. There are a couple comments. We're going to check
cool.
on those and see if there's something. Ask for teleportation is what David Crozier said. Jack, what is the most important activity in your life that sustains you?
Eating, breathing. Those are very sustaining.
And also, do you have a practice that sustains you when the bastards of the world get you down, or do you just blow it off as silliness?
The man doesn't get me down.
Do you have personal practices that really, rejuvenate?
Kind of help keep me centered as who I am. I don't know. Yoga and meditation are good for that, which I don't do either of enough, I'm sure. But for the most part, I don't feel that I am downtrodden or that anyone is oppressing me. And I realize that I'm fortunate in that regard, But if I ever find myself in that sort of situation, I'll be sure to give a good answer on what keeps me me.
Yeah. So if you were, I sometimes think at like emotional cycles as sort of like a roller coaster, and I can go pretty intense, in the cycles. How are you in terms of in life? Are you like generally like upbeat, sort of person, or do you go on big emotional cycles?
Oh yeah, I think everybody does have a peaks and valleys of their own emotions, and everything is a flow. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down, and I think I'm. Yeah, I don't know if I could say that I'm generally happy or unhappy, because sometimes things are grim, and it's easy to dwell in that. But I don't know. My general disposition is not unhappy or unpleasant, I don't think.
No, it's definitely not. At least not on the outside. You
Yeah,
never actually know what's going on inside.
Yeah, I have the comedian's trick of really hiding how how upset I can be. But that's fine. I'm all right with that. Meditation and yoga and a good diet help.
Yeah.
Eat right, exercise, breathe.
So let's go back to you immigrating to another
let's talk
country.
about me more.
Yes. So you.
Well, I'm not really emigrating either.
You just.
I'm just traveling. I might seek residency over there, and 6 months from now I might be living someplace else. There's no fixed plan.
So is there some specific things about Portugal that draw you there?
I have good friends that live there. There's a Mediterranean diet, Southern California climate, nice low cost of living.
Yeah.
That's and it's different. I'm tired of being cold. I've been in the Pacific Northwest for 16 years, which is just a crazy long time. And it's cold and wet, and I'm tired of that.
I can appreciate that. I try to get away every winter for a period of time,
Mm-hmm.
taste sunlight and warmth.
Colombia.
Mexico.
Yeah, Mexico.
Huh. But you're not going to have tons of Americans around you.
I am actually. There's a large expat community in Lisbon and Cascais, which is where we'll be living, and a lot of NATO and UN employees who are a large American set. Yeah, there's a lot of Americans that live over there.
All right. Have you lived in other countries before?
No, visited, but never lived in other countries. So it'll be a good learning experience.
It's exciting. I'm gonna want to come visit.
It's bananas.
Yeah.
And you should come visit.
Yeah. Maybe we could do another show out there.
There
What
you
have
go.
you learned since you resided in Portugal? What adventures have you been on?
And be like, I've learned I really love tapas, and beer is cheaper than water.
All right. Well, we're at the. I think we're at the 9-minute
Yep.
mark.
Yep.
So, what should we do with our final 10 minutes of your first, potentially last? You never know what could happen. But
Yeah, of my first and possibly last appearance on your program. What should we
Yeah.
do? Oh man.
is there any topic that you want to delve into?
I guess if there was anything, and there you go. I mean, you have an activist audience. If there's something that I would like to see change on an easier to change scale. I mean, so pharmaceutical companies are a nightmare and they suck, and American politics is more about money than the health and welfare of our citizens and all that fun stuff. I would like to see psychedelic drugs used in therapeutic practices. I am a somewhat regular user of psilocybin mushrooms for therapeutic reasons. I mean, also occasionally just for recreation, but mostly so I can sit and meditate and think about my life and what changes I want to make in it. And I've found that it's very helpful for meditation. It's very helpful for depression and anxiety, and I would like to see that more accepted and removed from the Schedule I classification.
And I think there has been some research.
We're out of time.
No,
Oh,
we're at
hey, we got a dude.
Crozier. You mentioned mushrooms, and
Hi,
David.
I
jumped
know.
in.
David's like, what? What do you got? We can only see up your nose and into your glasses.
And David jumped. No, he turned off his video. Hi, David. You can say something, I think, if you want.
I don't think we need to look at the black screen.
No. Well, that is not a 9-minute topic you just brought up, but that's an interesting one. I believe there has been. I've come across research about using. What's the name of the substance? The
Psilocybin.
Psilocybin.
That's
for
what
therapy.
makes the magic mushrooms magic.
Yeah. So do you know what the status of that? Is there any actual interest in our country in looking at that substance as a therapeutic?
There is interest. I don't know that there's anybody actively lobbying for it, or advocating, I should say. Nobody likes the L word. There are physicians who have experimented with it and seen positive results. What bothers me the most about it is that by going with the definition of Schedule 1 narcotics, it doesn't meet the definition.
Yeah.
Schedule 1 narcotics are supposed to be things that are addictive and have no medicinal value. And psilocybin mushrooms have proven to be non-addictive and have medicinal value. And so getting it off of that classification is step one to opening it up so that the FDA can approve more open testing of it.
What do you think the fears are against that?
I think I don't know, fear of drugs is pretty deep-seated in American culture. And that's got a lot to do with what American culture has done with drugs. People misuse a lot of substances.
Yeah.
And
Misuse a lot of medicinal substances.
and we also misuse things that are perfectly legal and widely accepted. But there's not like a strange stigma about alcohol unless you have direct exposure to the severe negative effects of it.
Yeah.
Most people just see it as a fun recreational tool.
So would you be willing to like describe any of your experiences or any parts of how the effect of mushrooms?
That is certainly not a 5-minute topic because there have been a lot of experiences and
well, we could
they
go.
can be very different.
We could go into overtime. It is, or we could bring you back. If you wanted, but I mean, just for someone out there that has never touched a psychedelic or a mushroom. I mean, I would say probably a lot of people that might watch this have probably done pot.
Sure.
I would say probably pot and alcohol. Most people have experienced those. What would you do? What would you say if they're asking why are mushrooms special? Can you sum up some ways that they're beneficial and therapeutic?
Mushrooms, when done in the correct sort of setting, if you're going into it with, I'm doing this for a therapeutic purpose. First of all, what I've found to be the best setting is laying down in your own bed with a blindfold and headphones on, listening to classical music or some other sort of soothing instrumental, ethereal type sound. And they sort of force self-therapy onto you. You think about yourself and the directions that you could possibly go. And you become very introspective, as opposed to alcohol, where you generally just make a lot of bad decisions.
Bad jokes.
Bad jokes, yeah. But you think you're hilarious and, and good looking.
I still can't really accurately describe the effect of alcohol. I can't really explain what it does if I have 2 or 3 drinks. It's
lowered inhibition.
Yeah, but I don't know if I get dumber or if something gets dulled.
We're going to go out to dinner tonight. I'll get you a few drinks.
We'll describe.
We can try to figure it out.
I should describe this. I feel dull, but so funny. I feel so funny.
I feel handsome and hilarious. I feel like taking my shirt off.
So, interesting. Listening to music, laying on a bed, and
you can even do like really small doses, and that has a nice a nice calming and healing effect. And of course myself, marijuana doesn't really appeal to me. It just makes me anxious and paranoid, and it's gotten so much stronger in the last 20 years that it just amplifies the not fun parts of it for me. When I was 18 and you'd buy an ounce of weed and just roll a bunch of joints because, I mean, it just wasn't terribly potent. And even then, I don't think I incredibly enjoyed it. I enjoyed that it helped me sleep and got me thinking, which was good. Because I like to do, I like to imbibe by myself.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So since you're speaking from experience,
Yes.
with these substances, it sounds like a pretty significant amount of experience. What would you say to young people? Like, do you think this is the type of therapy that people maybe of a certain age would be a good idea to try? I mean, I kind of feel like, personally, I feel like people under the age of 25 are
Morons. Oh.
Well-
Sorry, that's not true. You're not all morons. You just make a lot of questionable decisions.
Well,
But that's how you learn.
Well, I mean,
So-
they're going through so much. I mean, from up until 18. I mean, you are changing so much.
Yeah.
I really
Hormones
think
are out of
I
control.
think it's nuts to. It's really a bad idea, I think, to involve.
Yeah,
anything.
well, your brain's not really done developing until you're in your mid-20s anyway, and I think that it's best to really kind of let yourself ride through the shitstorm that is adolescence, and then as an adult, seek to make changes if you don't like the way you've turned out, or it's hard to put that into words. I think that people shouldn't just run out and buy drugs and experiment with them with the hope that it's going to make them a better person or anything. If that's what you're looking for, then you should have some guidance, for sure. I mean, I might not be the best example because I didn't have guidance, but at the same time, I also made a lot of really questionable decisions with substance use in my younger years.
So do you? So do you see? Do you perceive reality differently when you're, let's say, on
Under the influence? Sure,
Yeah.
sure. It feels like the veil has been drawn away, and you can see things a little bit more clearer.
So, like, if you were sitting here with me in this room and we had live video going,
Yeah, I wouldn't do that though.
why not?
Because for me, it's not a performance. That's not the purpose of it. What's a good analogy I could use?
All right, well, let's forget the video, and you're sitting here with me talking.
Sure.
Would, I guess I'm kind of like, sort of like suggesting, can you recall enough about how you would see the world that you could describe a little bit how this would be different, how this would feel different, or?
How would this feel different? I would have, well, I mean, for starters, I'm a very open and honest person. But I would find no trouble being very open and very honest about things that I would otherwise be maybe a little bit uncomfortable talking to people about. I wouldn't say anything with cameras on, but with just one-on-one with another person, I would happily share experiences or thoughts and kind of hash stuff out because I like to think. And
so does it feel like those thoughts and feelings that ordinarily you might have some restraint or hesitation, or you might even just feel unpleasant to take them out and share them, is suddenly like it's easier to share, and just like maybe even a little bit fun to share big, powerful, personal things.
Sure. Yeah, and I have in the past shared things with people because I would come to a realization about something and would readily share it in that moment because I just realized something that, that I couldn't, like, so I can give a specific example here. I was sitting around a campfire with a bunch of friends, and everyone who was there, their drug of choice, for lack of a better word, was they were either smoking marijuana or having a few beers. I didn't want to do either one of those things, so I took a tiny amount of mushrooms to just kind of make me comfortable and loose and stuff. And it occurred to me that evening that the reason I'd been upset for a couple of days was because of a thing that happened earlier in the week that had just been a huge blow to my self-esteem. And I didn't realize that that's why I had been upset, and I didn't realize that I had been given this blow to my self-esteem until that moment, and just readily and openly shared it with a group of friends who were very, they're friends, and so they very quickly said, well, no, don't even worry about that. This is who you are, and this is what people like about you and stuff like that. Mm. They kind of helped boost me back up, but yeah, it was a weird moment, one that, like, I would have come to that realization eventually anyway, but I wouldn't have shared it with my friends. I would have just kind of kept it and learned from it and moved on.
So interesting. So definitely a powerful tool that you find is can be very helpful, and it something that you think our society should be like looking at in a scientific, way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't take Xanax when there's something perfectly useful growing out of the ground.
Nice. Well, that is, I did not know we were going to go into that topic, but that was an interesting.
I'm sure you knew we would.
We had 10 minutes left. I didn't think you'd like pull that out.
Well, one last hurrah to the. How many people do we have? To those 6
four
people?
Still, and I don't see any new comments. But I could see, that is a really interesting topic. Mm-hmm. Especially since I like to get philosophical, and people that try those substances often have philosophical openness to discussing it. So I could definitely see you coming back now that you've broken the ice. And we know I can have you on.
This is me coming out and saying I can clearly never run for president.
I suppose. I don't know. It's not that bad, Cool. All right. Well, let's. Why don't we wrap the official show at that point?
Do we have outro music?
There will be. Yeah. Pretend you're listening to it. I'm gonna play the music. Yeah. So thank you all for joining us on this 6th episode of The Mindful Activist.
This is number 6?
This is number 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jack, for being a guest, and and for being my friend over the last 8 years.
8 years.
Most of that time, you've been a great friend.
Likewise.
And I am really going to miss you, having you so far away. So we're gonna have to video conference, or
it's
just
a small world that we live in now.
Yeah.
So
I mean, literally, there could be people on every corner of the earth just actually in our video conference. Mm-hmm. As David dropped in. Someday.
And especially if you do them at 10 o'clock in the morning, that's only 6 o'clock in the evening in Portugal. I can pop in every now and then.
Sweet. That'd be so great. Great. Was there anything you want to say to our audience as a goodbye?
Thanks for sticking around and listening.
Yeah.
And I can't see who's over there, and I don't want to lean way forward and find out. But drop me a line and say hi if you know who I am. Otherwise, farewell, bon voyage.
Oh, it's so sad. I see people at home crying.
I'm sure that's what it is.
Tess is leaving.
Yep.
All right.
It's like the last episode of I Love Lucy, I'm sure.
It is. That is exactly what I was thinking of. I Love Lucy, the last episode. All right. So we're going to conclude the podcast right there, but we might chat a little bit more. We'll see. All right. So thank you for watching. Until next time.